Welcome back to Unified Reality, the podcast where we discuss technology, innovation, AI, entrepreneurship, and obviously creativity. On today's episode, Shaping the Future, 3D content and immersive experiences with Will Selviz. Will, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Azad. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. So Will is a discovery. We found out about you through some of our friends on Instagram. You are extremely talented, my friend.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit more about you, because you have a great journey. You're from Venezuela. You lived in Kuwait. Now you're in Montreal. Tell us about yourself and how your career got started.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to share my life in this podcast. But hi, everyone. My name is Will Selviz. I'm originally from Venezuela, country between Brazil and Colombia in South America. And when I was around 4 years old, I got into drawing and painting. My earliest memory was becoming obsessed with Dragon Ball Z. I was like buying these coloring books from the newspaper kiosk, tracing them every day. And one day my parents got called by the principal because apparently I've been taking all the kids' money in school because they were buying all my drawings instead of buying lunch. So
how old were you?
I was in grade 1, grade
That's
2.
incredible, man. So you were already an entrepreneur, man.
Thank you. So that was my earliest exposure to drawing, and Venezuelan and Latin American cultures are really big on arts and that sort of education. So when I moved to Kuwait in grade 8, it really exposed me. I was in an American school. It was partly around funded by the American embassy and American base in Kuwait. So a lot of exposure to like Western culture, a lot of exposure to like professors from different parts of the world. So my arts teacher and especially my arts teacher was really supportive of what I was doing. That kind of just was a snowball from there, like snowballing into my skills and to being exposed to like all kinds of, like I said, cultures and perspectives on arts. But to, fast forward a little bit more, I went to University of British Columbia for computer science in 2013. Not really by choice. I wanted to go into art school. I wanted to go into Sheridan or OCAD originally, but my parents coming from a very engineering, law, and all these very specific fields that don't really take design into consideration. They were like, you should go into computer science. But eventually I transferred to OCAD, went to the Digital Futures program, which, again, it's really ahead of its time. Even when I went there in 2016, they were teaching a lot of concepts. Like one of my professors was just like publishing I think it was the second ever NFT. Mitchell. Yeah.
So that was an advance, an NFT in 2016.
Yeah, and he, he was just an example, but a lot of the people that were teaching at that program, we really felt like, first of all, there's 20 of us in this whole program. Usually there's hundreds of people per year. And second of all, we're getting taught by people in the industry who have had like TED Talks, who have had like very early exposure.
Was it hard to get into that program?
It was, yeah. Like it's specifically that program. OCAD itself, there's different programs that you can get into, but for the Digital Future program, it really felt like everyone there had like a superpower and a purpose. And I still keep in touch with a lot of my schoolmates because they all went into different fields. I have a friend who's a smell chemist.
That's really good too.
Yeah, I have a friend who went to work at Ubisoft as a texture designer. So there's like everyone kind of got something out of that program. I myself kind of deep into 3D, graduated into the pandemic. It was a pretty crazy time to graduate university, but I remember my last day at university, there was a jobs fair. And I shook hands on someone essentially like they were going to hire me after graduation. And the next day, everything was shut down. So,
man, unfortunate, man.
It worked
Crazy
out for
times.
we'll talk more about that. But yeah, it worked out for the better in the end. I think it was the path that I needed to take was more entrepreneurial and figuring things out for myself. But that time, it was really definitive for me. And I think for a lot of people in the industry as well, like when we're in in isolation and all the sort of things that came to mind and ideas that came to fruition. I think Rendered, which is my studio, which we'll talk more about, was solidified because of all these little pieces kind of coming together. And this, yeah. So I guess that's a TLDR of my life, but
it's very interesting. That's a really beautiful journey. And so you said you started from drawing. Were you like drawing 3D stuff or just regular sketches, right? Obviously, you can't draw 3D, but you could, put the axis.
No, you're right. Yeah, I started, like I said, Dragon Ball Z was kind of my muscle memory. Eventually, after I don't know, I'm having like a folder just like stacked of like drawings that were traced. Eventually, I did it out of like memory. And by I would say like grade 10, I was like really into like photorealism, like wanted to get the shadows right. All this like the Renaissance was like the best.
Were these in color or just black and white?
I was strictly pencil, like mechanical pencils, like 0.5, like super detailed stuff.
That's nice.
Thank you. Yeah, so I actually ended up taking like university level art classes in high school because of how obsessed I was.
How good you were, basically.
Yeah, I was really obsessed.
Question for you, because this is always a curiosity for me. When is it that it happens in our brain? Because I did, I went from 2D to 3D. When did that happen to you? Like, okay, were you ever on Photoshop? I'm guessing so, right? You have to, kind of.
Yeah. My school was good in that they were supplementing everything in different angles. So, like, I was taking also graphic design. I was in the yearbook, designing the yearbook. I was also taking photos. Like, I kind of had a very serendipitous transition. I think I was talking to you guys about this earlier. You kind of go from like drawing to photography to videography to all this sort of things. And for me, I picked up photography when the second iPhone came out or something like that. It was like actually my yearbook teacher one of the summers was like, here's a rule of thirds. And I was like, oh, great. Like, I just went on to that was around the time that Instagram launched. I was obsessed with taking pictures with my phone, and eventually I convinced my family into buying a vacation DSLR camera, and I just took it for myself.
Man, the DSLR cams changed the game for me, that's for sure. So I come from the era where we had like, what we could afford was a handy cam, right? But you still had the tape, and it wasn't 720 or 1080, it was 480.
Right.
And you had a tape, and you had to play it back on a computer with a machine and time code it and record it. It was complicated, man. DSLRs changed our life. And then the phone. So the phone. So when was it that you actually transitioned and said, so are you fully 3D now, or you're a mix of everything?
I feel like now I'm playing a role of like being a generalist, but also having a really good vertical in 3D and a really good vertical in XR in general. I think the pivoting point for me was about senior year high school. I got into augmented reality and Cinema 4D R9. Like, I don't know, it was like pretty early days of Cinema 4D. I definitely didn't pay for it. I cracked it somehow.
Yeah, we've all been there. So when you say AR, was that like something that you published on the phone, or was it more for headsets?
Yeah, so it was an app called HP Aurasma. It was one of the earliest apps that came out in the App Store with AR that allowed you to do target tracking. At the time, I was doing it, to be fully honest, because I have a thing for making like gift cards and like greeting cards for people. So I was making it for special people in my life.
That's super cool, bro.
Oh, thank you.
I'm telling you, like if you were to draw or design a gift card and you could scan it and there's a special message, right? I'm not trying to plug volumetric stuff, any type of AR message. I feel like it's mixed media, right? So when I'm asking you, are you 2D or 3D? Really, I know that you're all of them, right? Because we have to be. We're in a world where today you have to know all the media to even create XR, right? Because in there's going to be fonts. Fonts is like easy, right? But there's going to be an image. There's going to be maybe a video, an animation. And then you have all the 3D stuff.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
Okay, so let's go back just a little bit back to like when you started the 3D. What was it that really inspired you? Like, was there a moment that inspired you? Did you see a movie or did you see a piece of art that said, you know what? This is who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, obviously the Pixar movies was really pivotal for a lot of people, especially seeing like Toy Story and those movies like are the earliest memories I had of like, seeing a 3D character have emotions. I think the moment that it happened for me to actually learn I had a cousin. I have a cousin lived in Venezuela and just was self-taught 3D artist. I never really understood what he did, but I just knew that he was doing that. And one day, at this point, I've been doing photography for like family and friends, and I've been really serious about photography at this point, where I had like a little bit like of a light box, of a little studio in my room.
Cool.
And yeah, like I really, it's like the year 4 of like photography. You're kind of.
What was your first camera?
It was like a Nikon D5000 or something.
Yeah, I remember that camera. It's a good. So I had a Rebel. That's how.
Yeah, like a T3i kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a T3i kind of like 5100, like these 5100.
So at this point, you have a mini studio and you're really into photography.
Yeah, and at this point, like I really wanted a cool intro for my website. I go on Envato.com and I see in Envato this super cool like photography, like ready to go like
website.
Intro, like CGI motion capture,
After Effects animation.
Yeah, like a CGI After Effects like animation, and I messaged my cousin. He's like, "Hey, like, do you happen to know like where I could get the files for this? Like, this is like $100 at this point. It's like I can't afford this. Do you know where I can get this for free?" And he's like, "I made this."
Like what?
Like,
your cousin made it?
Yeah, my cousin made this.
And he put it on Envato. So for everyone that doesn't know, Envato is a marketplace for different types of media templates.
Yeah, so it's his pseudonym. I look at the initials and his initials, and I'm like, crazy, like small world. Like, what are the odds that I see this?
That's
template?
really crazy.
Yeah, and he gave me. I remember he gave me the files. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not only gonna give you the files. Like, I'll show you how it works." And he taught me the basics of Cinema 4D, and then I went down that rabbit hole. At that time, like Grayscale Gorilla was like the main YouTube channel that had like Cinema 4D tutorials. So I was just watching that. So 3D was pivoting for me like 2012, 2013.
And then that's when you also got into like
AR.
Like when was it right away that
it was same time.
Same time.
Yeah.
So for us it was a bit different because AR didn't exist yet, and we're like, oh, cool, 3D.
Right.
But like, is this for Pixar? Like, are we gonna ever make a movie? It's too expensive. How are we gonna do this?
I mean, to be fair, the AR I was doing was mostly like for photos. So like,
okay, so you would layering and you would get a picture.
Well, you were layering like I was using Photoshop and making like
overlays on the picture.
So yeah, it will have like literally a different animation that you could make. It was very rudimentary, but
it's
like
still very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like sort of like okay, like the next thing I made, for example, was like a scavenger hunt game, and I drew like all the almost like. I was making these like cryptic like symbols, and each symbol had a meaning, and it was like a game that you could play with people, and it was all gamified, so you could do like these little challenges around like a park. And long story short, I played it with some friends. It was fun, it's cool, but like I still have the book somewhere in my shelf. It's like okay,
and this is before Pokemon Go, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like this is still Erasmus, like HP Erasmus, like 2012.
And so you had to use their app basically to get your stuff going.
Yeah, it was localized, so there wasn't social AR at the time. You couldn't. I don't know if you could have sent a link to someone. I don't think so. I think it was just like on your device and that's it, or maybe like shared experiences in their platform. But I know they shut down like maybe a couple of years after that.
Is there anything that we should be on the lookout in terms of apps like that today, except for Uverse?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, like, honestly, social AR is kind of capitalized by the social media platforms right now. Outside of that, I've, tinker here and there with, like, WebXR. But
yeah, I have a question for you. Are you creating a lot of filters for social AR, like, let's say, Snapchat or TikTok or IG?
Yeah. So that's been one of the bigger streams of the past 2-3 years of clients. A lot of people reach out for AR platform social filters. I would say like mostly brands that want to be associated with innovation and exposure to that demographic, or people who are in the cutting edge of technology and want to bridge that with like maybe the broader audience. So like I personally don't have that many filters on my account, but I've made.
You've created some for some brands. So, can you give us some examples that you've created?
Yeah, I mean, I worked. I'm at a partner for Spark AR, so like through their platform, worked with Sprite, worked with Nike. Cool. Thank you.
What kind of creativity do you do? It's like when they ask you to do a filter like this, do they absolutely have like ROIs or CTAs that they want to push? Like, I'll give you an example. Oh, I absolutely want to show this new piece of, let's say, a hat, and I want to sell hats. So it's not just to do something. Is that usually how they come across?
I mean, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the way that AR has been designed in social media platforms so far has been mostly for awareness, not so much for like a strict KPI where you can know how many sales are. I mean, there isn't really like that many ways of linking, redirecting people through a link through the filters yet. And I think that's by design because at this point it's not that, complicated and there has been experiments with AR ads, and that's still evolving conversation. But I think for the most part, everyone's doing it for exposure or for, becoming more exposed to having the brand be more exposed to more people. You see a lot of people using filters. I'm actually really excited for example, like people are using it for marketing on TikTok, and you see like subtle product placement, and it's not really like you don't see it being. TikTok is a place where like if it seems salesy, people don't interact with it, right? So I think where it's maturing there, it's really interesting to see how it's more subtle versus like an experience that has branding all over it. People are kind of like, okay, like
it's kind of boring.
Yeah, like it's there. I think we're in the maturity of the shake-off stage of a lot of this technology, so it's interesting how people are responding to them. And I think the natural response is also that phones, there's a recurring theme that phones are just sort of like constraining them in itself, like having a phone that you have to like lift and like pick up and move around. So I think that's another layer of conversation that people are like, okay, this is really cool, I see the potential, but let's wait for the next iteration. Yeah,
that's very interesting for you to say. And so do you see lots of value in creating immersive content? Like, how do you see AR, VR, MR changing how we interact with content?
Yeah. I mean, there's different layers. I'm trying to see through my notes. Which question is that, sorry?
Number 3. So immersive technology. How is AR, VR, MR changing the way that we interact with digital content?
Okay, perfect. I think pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, you have two totally different answers. The pandemic definitely accelerated a lot of people into like picking up VR and AR at a rate that's, a lot of isolation at home, a lot of things happening in the world that when I said like I graduated into the pandemic and decided to reboot my studio at that time, it was sort of serendipitous because it was, right place, right time for a lot of brands. 1 or 2 months into the pandemic, I was already working with Nike, with Microsoft, the NBA, and those companies. Through word of mouth, but also because I've always positioned myself as someone who wanted to do this sort of things from home. I haven't talked about my past in the music industry, but I had a pretty polar opposite side of it. But my whole point with all this, the physical and the digital, especially having been the experiential marketing side pre-pandemic and now coming back into experiential post-pandemic, I think we've sort of done almost like a 360. Where it feels like, we started at a point where it was experiential. I don't want to say it didn't really care about XR, but it didn't quite adopt it in a way that felt genuine or felt like it was more mature.
Being useful, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, people are a little bit more analytical of how they integrate like AR into a booth at a trade show than like 2019, 2018, where it was more so like, cool, like here's AR.
Or here's a QR code and you could do something. But now I feel like you really have to think of the storytelling too, right? Like you have to tell a story with AR just like you do with a picture or a video.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, the really cool moment was last year. I was back in Kuwait after 7 years. I got to do an art show with cool folks. They're called Out the Box. OTB.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to Out the Box. We did a show in Kuwait called All Ball, celebrating basketball culture in the Middle East. And those guys like are crazy.
That's super cool.
Yeah, they made like backboards of all kinds of designs, like out of like motherboards, out of like fabric. Cool. Yeah, like they've been doing backboards. You go to the warehouse, they have like backboards in every single wall. It's pretty cool. and they did an art show where they wanted to say, hey, like this is a collaboration between rendered and OTB. Let's make sure that you have your space with your stuff that you want to do, and let's make sure we have our space and see how we can bring them together. So my immediate thing was like, I need to activate one of the backboards. So I actually did a whole AR experience that was just a backboard. Things are coming out of it.
So you point your phone at the backboard, and everything starts coming out. Did you use an app or was it web AR based?
It was Spark AR.
Great. Oh, okay. So that's even cooler. So Spark AR is basically the platform for Meta, Facebook, and IG. So you could literally just go on that software, create a filter, and then publish it on IG or Facebook, and then it's available on a specific profile. So as you put it on your company profile, I'm guessing?
No, I think we did this one. We put it in OTB's profile. Yeah.
Okay, so you created the filter, put it on OTB's profile. When a user comes to the event, they pull out their phone, they go on the profile, then they could experience this, let's call it experiential activation. Yeah. And then they could obviously film it, record it, and share it, right? That's the whole point, I think, of what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah, and I thought it was a really cool collaboration because they already had a very substantial amount of work that they did without technology in mind. Like it was just purely raw. Tadek, the guy who runs the studio, he has such a brilliant way of expressing his mind through his work, that when I came after and saw that and said, I'm going to add AR to it, it didn't feel like it was one was following the other, or it was just very, 50-50 integral parts of each other. Good. Yeah, it was a pretty cool collaboration. And, outside of that, we had LED walls with 3D animations on them with other artists from Kuwait as well. There was a room that was kind of so they're crazy. They took this.
We like crazy, man.
No, the good kind of crazy. They did shipping containers. They took 2 shipping containers, stacked them up, and the top one they removed one of the panels, one of the walls,
the front part.
Yeah, and they put plexi on it, and they built a giant hoop, and they turn it into a backboard. The actual
that's
container.
Cool.
This is their warehouse. You literally go into their warehouse today, and this is an office space.
And this was an event, right? How many people attended? This is a great event, man.
Yeah, there's hundreds of people came over 2 days or 3 days in the weekend. So we kept it open invite. First night was invite only. Second and third night was just people coming through.
Congratulations. Just as a reminder, I didn't want to cut you, but what you just explained is what I was going to ask you, right? So can you define us what an immersive event is, or an experiential activation? So lots of people use the word experiential, activation, immersive. I don't really think they really know what it means. And so you just explain what it means. If you want to add something to that, like a 30-second or whatever, what is the explanation for you? What is an activation, right? What is an experiential?
Yeah, I mean, at its core, and from a marketing and branding perspective, is associating an experience or a moment or something that it's participatory, right? So the audience is participating, whether it's actively or passively, whether you're standing in a place and something's happening around you, or you're interacting with something and triggering events around you. That's at its core, that's the principal part. And then the other part of it is that it's usually associated with a brand. So it's Sprite wants to do a booth at a festival. Usually you hope that everything around it is around the flavor of the soda, the music, also fits the fizzy sensation of the soda, all these sort of things that is taking the core elements of the brand and expanding into all senses, in my opinion. And that's what experiential is to me. I think that it can be redefined or rephrased depending on the context as well.
Well said. You said it's about all the senses, right? Mm-hmm. I like that. That's very much what we think experiential is. Can you just a little note for some of the upcoming artists, tell them how you got to work with Sprite and also your process? Do you do the whole creative direction, or do you work with their teams? It's different, I guess, on each one. But tell us one of the projects, one of the latest ones, if you want, right? Very high level.
Yeah, of course. I mean, by far one of my favorite was Air Max Day with Nike. So Air Max Day is, if I say the day wrong, they're gonna call me out. But
we won't say the date, but what we do know that we love it too.
Yeah. So Air Max Day is a big, let's call it holiday that Nike came up with as a way to celebrate the heritage of the Air Max line. 2021, I think, 2021, they hit me up and say, hey, Will, we're doing a global campaign. We'd love for you to represent Canada in this global campaign. Like there was, I think, Tokyo, Spain, all these countries had like creative that was representing their country. I was representing Canada.
So cool, man.
Thank you. Via Toronto. So like this was like a complete takeover. Like this was on the stores, this was on the website, this was on everywhere. And I had no idea at the time. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. I'm really happy that you did that, man. I'm proud of it, man.
Thank you.
Also, I was gonna say, like, how does it happen? Do they just reach out to you on Instagram? Do you keep posting? So this is why they see your work?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was word of mouth. I was just very excited to be creating content in 3D animation.
But I mean, you're out there, right? Because it's also about entrepreneurs. So I'm trying to get some advice from you at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you're out there, right? You're posting, you're networking, you're going to events, you're talking to people. So, you have to be active. You can't just create and stay in your basement, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's part of it too. I think, to give you a bit of context, when I was still at OCAD before graduating, I was doing my thesis on the future of speculative, let's call it the future of sneaker design, sustainable sneaker design. And I don't know if you're familiar with Autodesk.
Yes.
So I was doing a placement at Autodesk in their tech lab in Toronto. So I had access to like the craziest machinery.
It's cool.
A lot of the people working there were working in like anywhere from medical grade 3D printing to like engineering houses, 3D printed houses.
Bridges, trains, like real engineering stuff with 3D.
Yeah, so they advised us on our thesis. My partner Sanmeet and I were at OCAD doing our thesis on 3D printing sneakers with algae bloom.
That's cool, man.
Thank you. And that was how I leveraged, for example, my thesis with interviewing people at Nike, working with people, different people around the world as well. Graduated into the pandemic.
Very smart though. That very smart to do a thesis on 3D printed shoes from natural resources.
Yeah, and a lot of it was also thinking. A lot of it was how do we position consumers at the forefront of innovation. So we made a lot of assumptions about the future of footwear being 3D scanning shoes, customizing parts. Like my theory and Samit's theory was, if you treat a shoe like a bike, where if for example the chain breaks, you replace it.
That's a smart way of looking at it. So you don't buy a new bike every year unless it gets stolen or whatever. That's a really smart way of looking at the shoe. It's really cost saving too, resource saving, and if you like the shoe, because most of the shoes I buy, I like them, but I can't find it again after.
Yeah, exactly. There's that like lifespan of the shoe too. Like even if you keep it in your closet for X amount of years, it's eventually gonna like degrade and not be able to wear it. So like you see now like shoes like sole swaps or the sort of thing. So for us was like, how do we keep the shoe away from landfill for as long as possible? So we came up with all these crazy ideas of like an outsole, or replacing like the parts of the shoe, or like translocal materials. So it's like thinking there's so many aspects of it that we're really excited about, but the most exciting part for us was this is eventually going to happen. Like I don't care if people think
how we get there, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think the bigger picture, like to summarize the advice from all this for the people listening, it's when we're doing this thesis, we had professors who were saying like, this is not a good thesis. Like this is not gonna get you anywhere. This we just had like maybe 4 advisors in the span of a year, out of which maybe 2 or maybe even 3 were like, this is not gonna roll. And we didn't listen to them. We listened to the people we actually cared about. In this case, people in the industry, people at Autodesk, and then it ended up being something that people valued when I was having conversations post graduating. So I'd say like if people have the opportunity to be in university, do a thesis, do a project, definitely leverage that as a way to propel you into your career, or doing a topic that you'll be curious about down the road, not just whatever topic is trendy right now. Yeah, I'd say like honestly, Air Max Day wouldn't have happened if I didn't do that thesis. To be completely honest.
So they were wrong.
Yeah, they're
You
wrong.
were
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So the lesson is listen to your gut instinct and, ask more people and don't be afraid to ask, I guess, right? All right. Thanks a lot for the advice. I'm going to ask you a few more entrepreneur questions soon. We're going towards the end of the episode, so I want to ask you a bit about AI. It's this huge thing. You're a content creator. You're a dope content creator. And I want to first know, do you use AI on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think whoever says they're not writing the emails without ChatGPT, they're lying. But yeah, I do use AI very frequently, whether it's for conceptualizing, thinking of things. But I love to dive into this because I'm also I love to hear your ideas. And
yeah, you could ask me some questions too. So I would say, let's say, how does AI influence your 3D creation? Do you use text to 3D prompts, or do you ever maybe create an image on Midjourney to get some inspiration? Do you use them for your inspiration or as bases?
Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely. I'd say less more so than when it started becoming popular. Ironically, you think that you adopt it more over time. I think it's about finding that balance between what's your creativity and what's being imposed, quote unquote, imposed on you by this technology. There's a lot of biases. There's a lot of things that are ingrained into these algorithms at the end of the day. So if you're not really cautious about the way that you approach it, you can easily start losing your essence to a lot of this stuff. And I don't like to embody it or put it in a negative light. At the end of the day, it's a tool.
It's a tool. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So me too. Same thing. When GPT came out at first 2 years ago, I was using it every 10 minutes. Now I use it a few times a day. Midjourney, man. At first I went in 1,000 pictures in the first day. I made so many pictures, I didn't know which one to pick anymore. Then I was like, well, calm down. Okay, it's there.
Yeah.
You can use it when you need it. Then I really didn't use it. Then I'm kind of back at using it. So now I adjusted myself at the agency. So at GeniusXR, we're on the service side. All of our employees use it. On the Uverse side, all of our employees use it. So everybody's using it right now. Google wants us to start using Gemini. Let's see what happens if they can convince me in the next week. We've been doing demos and comparing both, and I showed them. Google was cool enough to say, "Oh, this thing we're working on it. This thing they're better than us, and this thing we're better than them." I was like, "Oh man, that's I appreciate that." And we could go on and on about AI. I think we'll have another episode about that because that's a whole other thing. We could talk about ethics and who owns what, IP.
There's a lot to cover.
There's a lot to go there. But the first point I wanted to really see is if you use it, you're not against it. It's a tool. I see it like a bicycle or a car.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like if you don't use it, you might fall back.
Absolutely.
And also, if I was to tell you, hey, I created an open source version with Llama 3 that has a front end where you could just drag and drop your folder with all your stuff and then prompt it to do something based only on your data, I'm sure you would like that because it would save you so much time.
Yeah, I mean, what they just announced that Microsoft with Copilot Plus is pretty similar to that, where I can't remember the name of the startup, but something similar to the Rabbit R1. But
there's a few that I saw too.
Yeah, that is more OS based AI. I think this is where it's at because a lot of the tools are very fragmented. You have a tool for text, a tool for images. You could argue that some are doing both of them now, but there isn't OS based AI per se yet. So that's the next step. But yeah, there's a whole Pandora's box there with ethical and privacy things there too.
Thank you. It's a whole Pandora's box. So thank you for the advice you gave to some of the entrepreneurs, but I still want to ask you one more question about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, of course.
And we're going to talk about your company and how you founded it. But what was the biggest challenge you had as an artist going towards becoming an independent business owner, right? I am a business owner. What was the challenge? Obviously, money's always a challenge, but other than that?
Honestly, yeah, I'd say just making sure that you have a good routine, that you have a good structure, that you know that this is up to you at the end of the day. It's a double-edged sword. You can attain higher goals and ceilings if you're going that route than maybe working on a specific, career path or company. Or it can really be the other way around. If you're not putting in the work, it's not going to happen. So the counterpart to, not the counterpart, but the complementing part to that is making sure you take care of your health.
Oh yeah, you got to take care of yourself so that you could actually work. And that's a good point you made. You have to work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing this, but I kind of think that's what it is. You started as an independent artist, let's say freelancer type, and then you founded your company, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit of like what was the vision for that? Like, what's the vision for Rendered? And I love the name.
Thank you.
And how did it happen? And when did it happen?
Yeah, I think I missed a whole chunk of stuff between high school and university, mainly because I was saving it for this question as well. So Rendered started as it's called Rendered Magazine back in the day. 2015, 2016 was when it came to be. And at the time I was upset. I was actually, since I moved to Canada 2013 through 2018, 19, I was a concert photographer.
That's cool.
Thank you.
This was in BC, right?
This is in BC, Alberta, and at this point, Toronto. I was just moving to Toronto.
Okay, cool.
So I'd been doing like all the festivals in BC. I did like the Shambhalas, the Center of Gravity, all this like big festivals in BC. At the time, it was big for me, but eventually, like I was writing finals in university and getting called to shoot Coachella that weekend.
Cool, man.
Thank you. It was a pretty weird life I was living at the time. My parents weren't supportive of it, so
they didn't understand, right?
Yeah,
like, what's going on?
Yes, but it kind of all that to go a little bit back to how Render happened. I was getting a lot of opportunities to bring people with me to shows, and I prioritized people. First of all, people of color, and second of all, people who didn't really get the opportunity to do so because of their age. Like I was one of the youngest people, if not the youngest people, whenever I shot shows, and everyone else in the room was kind of skeptical of my skills, and just because of age. So I always took the opportunity of like, okay, you know what? Like I'm gonna build my crew, I'm gonna help people out, and I want to bring them to get access to all these festivals and shows.
That's dope.
And then the counterpart to that was I wanted to create a publication that's mainly on internet subcultures. So like a Reddit culture, like all this sort of things were happening. Like at the time, like Vaporwave was huge. All this sort of things were happening in 2016. So I was very much intrigued by that, but I didn't really care about like it getting like 20, 50,000 followers, whatever. I just wanted to like make sure it reached like the subculture level. And that taught me a lot. I'd never spent a single dollar in like boosting anything for Rendered, and still like it reached my eyes a good amount of people. And in the CD, for example, in Vancouver and in the UK, where a lot of our writers were also based out of, a lot of people knew about Rendered, just even if it's like at a underground show or something. So that was, for me, it was like a pretty good lesson.
That's great content marketing, man.
Thank you.
Good strategy.
Thank you. So yeah, it kind of evolved into publication. We actually never had a physical issue. I never owned a physical issue. We had 4 physical prints, and I gave them away to some of the editors and some friends and family that made it happen. But I don't have a shirt we only had 2 things that were ever produced, a shirt and a physical issue. I don't have either because I gave them out. So it kind of goes to say like, sometimes you just got to make it happen. With what you have.
You have to. No choice. That's what an entrepreneur does.
Yeah. But all that to say, Render, I put it in the back burner while I was at university at Oak Head. And
so you had this idea way before.
Yeah, like Render.
And so the name Rendered Magazine was, what, were you 14? 15?
No, 20. No, Rendered Magazine, 2015. I was around 20.
Okay, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
And this, so you had the idea for the magazine and you put it on the back burner, so you couldn't continue?
Yeah, so like, it's still, like I still want to do documentaries. We did a whole documentary. We were talking earlier about 360. I did it like 360 at Shambhala with another artist, Tyree. He had a rig of like 6 or 8 GoPros synced at once.
The blue thing, right? With
the
GoPros?
Yeah, that was a nightmare, but it was fun to like...
Nightmare, bro.
So we had that on Facebook going. It was cool. But like at the end of the day, there was that immersive, emerging technology aspect to Rendered, and that was the namesake was because I had this vision of like, okay, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I really wanted something that didn't really like technology doesn't have to be a counterpart to nature. Like you can
Yes.
find a way to like blend them together and enhance your experience. That was like at the core, like what I felt like was this whole idea of rendered. And then eventually, like you could see that in the branding had this like glitch art going with like nature landscape in the Pacific Northwest. And then when I rebooted it in 2020, I was purely concentrating in 3D animation and AR. And that's been my bread and butter since. I'd say like since AI has been coming about, I feel like there's been a renaissance of wanting people around who have all this, have sort of explored every single.
Yep, totally. You're on it, man. There is that renaissance, and us too, man. Even though we've been there a long time, when the word AI came back, because it was there before a few times, now it's like, oh, again, AR is live again. I'm like, yeah, cool. But we've been there. We were there, even there when you weren't talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool, man. Very, very cool. So I love the name, man. Congratulations for Rendered. And everybody go check out the website. Can you tell them the website, the URL?
Yeah, it's rendered, RENDRD.com.
Perfect. One more or two more questions for you. And I'm also a community guy. Rich, our co-founder, is also a community guy. We love to help the community, youth, through sports or entrepreneurship. Now, I know you're involved in supporting and having some community impact. Can you tell us a bit more? So I know there's BIPOC youth. Am I saying it correctly? BIPOC youth?
Right.
How does Rendered Media aim to provide opportunities and education for BIPOC youth in creative industries?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, it's always been a priority to provide, and whenever there's an opportunity to hire a freelancer in 3D or someone who knows how to do something, especially in the cutting edge of technology, my Rolodex starts with people of color. That's just like how I see it. And a lot of the times, brands will want me to put together a campaign where I can feature other people. So, for example, for Air Max Day, we had a segment where it was an hour-long segment aired by Nike globally. And I made sure that everyone in that panel was people of color from Toronto that represented every single borough of Toronto. And
super dope, man. So you made sure that all of that happened, right?
Yeah. So like every time I curate a panel,
was it a 1 hour just for Canada, or that was the 1 hour for worldwide?
Worldwide. Like before I was Travis Scott performing. After I was Skepta performing. Like it was like kind of like a.
And in there you have like segments with Montreal creators.
Yeah. I mean, like this one specifically.
No, sorry, Toronto's creators.
Yeah.
So Montreal doesn't cut it for that, man. We don't even have a basketball team.
I mean, it's coming. I feel like it's coming.
Yes,
the NBA is doing some stuff.
Beverly, we're putting pressure on you. Richard, too. Both of you, pressure. It's some guys that work with NBA.
Right now, it's between. I hear like a lot of rumors. Right now, they're saying there's going to be another Canadian team. So hopefully,
And we've been hearing it for a few whiles. Hopefully, it happens. Montreal, baby. Sorry to cut you. So you like to give opportunities, same as us, man. We make sure that minorities are represented. We're minorities ourselves, obviously, but it's something that's really close to our heart, especially for immigrants, people that came here or even the second generation, because we don't have the same opportunities, right? And if I could open a door for you, why not?
Exactly.
Especially if it doesn't cost me anything. Even if it costs me a little something, it's okay. I believe in being a community person and helping each other, because it's going to help you back. You can't achieve anything in this world by yourself. I believe that. So I always want to support everyone around me, and newcomers too. Not newcomers, I mean new settlers in Montreal somehow. And don't forget, we are in Florida too, so you have a home there too.
Oh, thank you.
Just to conclude the episode, man, I really like your direction, man. Congratulations on all the work. I love your energy. Keep going. Don't stop. I love all the advice that you gave to young entrepreneurs and creatives.
Thank you.
We hope to have you back again and again. We're going to work on a project together. So is there anything that you want to share in terms of upcoming projects, or really something cool that you're working on and you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, again, thanks for creating this platform to talk about this, first of all.
Thank you.
And I'll say like that I can speak on air. My project ended up being Protopia and Protopica. It's a collaboration project with Manuel Sincili. I'm really excited about because it just puts together a lot of layers of my background as a Latin Black artist, but also Manu's for Caribbean heritage. We both had a pretty interesting intersection in that we were creating a lot of content around the same time on that, and to find ourselves in the same city was pretty cool. So right now I'm actually working on how I can work on maybe more narrative-based part of it. So I myself would like to work in film, would like to work in different things, but right now I'm definitely more focused on like how to get other people to share their stories as well, seeing that we have all these tools available to us. So like Manu and myself, there's hundreds of other people out there in the country who are also very interested in creating narrative-based stories or content or things. So I hope that I can do more of that with the time that I have outside of work or in my own time. But that's what I'm most excited about, yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Shout out to Manu. He's going to be passing by soon too. I actually think I met him through. I met you through him. I think he might have told me to follow you, or maybe I saw him reposting something. But yeah, shout out to Manu. Yeah, wonderful, talented person, and we're going to be having him on too.
Thanks, amazing.
So yeah, it's really interesting, that project that you're talking about. So narrative. I want us to get back to that later on. Not right now, but we'll have an episode about how to tell a beautiful story, a good narrative with immersive content, and also the best, because you also know this, we know this, mixed media, man. Mixing everything together is what is going to be win, right? And not forgetting the physical.
Yeah. So transmedia and bridging things together is where it's at the moment, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Will. It was a pleasure to have you on. Everyone, go and follow Will Selviz on Instagram, on X, I'm guessing, on TikTok.
Yeah, thank you.
And his website, rendered, RENDRD.com. And thank you, my friend. See you soon again.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks, Azad.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.